is the issue the recommendation, or is the issue that this person lacks the discipline to actually walk through the strategy that they need to make their business more productive and successful?
Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a guest on, Blake Benz, and I will say I have learned quite a bit from watching his podcast and watching his posting strategy on LinkedIn, so it is an honor to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, Blake, like I said, we met via LinkedIn, which I think is a great resource. How often are you meeting people via LinkedIn, or before coronavirus, were you out just meeting people face to face?
Yeah, it's funny. My days are so strange because it's like, so typically in the morning, I'm a coffee guy, so I'm typically out meeting people, grabbing coffee. One of the things I talk about like in the business world is like nurturing relationships. So I'm not just like meeting new people. I'm often like, and we all do this, you get out, you haven't talked to someone in a while. So you grab coffee, catch up. How are the kids? How are things going? So I would find myself doing that in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I was basically on LinkedIn, meeting people and just sending, connection requests. Hey, would love to connect. You seem awesome. Just like you would do in person. And so now it's this weird, I call it weird because I just never expected to spend my time this way. Because I honestly, like, I hate social media. I mean, I really do not like social media. I don't like being on it. I don't like spending time on it. And really what I learned, and I'm just going to go ahead and take sides here. Really what I learned was that I hate Facebook. LinkedIn, I love. It's been amazing. Probably about I started my business in October of 2018. In February, I really started getting active on LinkedIn, and I started just reaching out to people. And I had a guy actually who he reached out to me and said, hey, I noticed you're new on the platform. Here's some other really great professionals you should reach out to and just say hey to. And so I started doing that, and I had this one lady by the name of Kristen Sherry who was like, hey, let's have like a digital meetup. Let's talk. Let's see kind of what's going on. And from there, I've just kind of built this tribe on LinkedIn of people, dozens of people who I would call friends, who I would call if I had a problem, who I've never met in person. But they're getting pictures of my baby, my newborn. We're swapping stories. We're telling stories about like the obnoxious DM we got from like a salesperson. It's been pretty incredible to kind of build this tribe online with, again, people that I've never met before. It's just, it's been a weird, surreal deal. So to answer your original question, I would say originally probably about 30% of my networking time was spent on LinkedIn. I'd say probably 70 to 80% now is on LinkedIn just because it's so much quicker, it's so much more efficient. And strangely enough, I'm able to kind of cut through the BS and get right to connecting with someone more online than I've been able to do in person.
Gotcha. Now, have you found that, I guess, is it that the platform itself has matured, or just has it been you've just gotten more comfortable with the platform, or is it kind of a combination of both?
So it feels like, and I'm just talking about here and now. And so I don't know really what it was like 5 years ago. You'll hear people talk about, oh, I've been on LinkedIn since 2010 and it's so different now. And I don't know what it's going to be like in the future, because you have people like Gary Vee who are like, there's a timetable on this, and it's going to expire quicker than you think. What I will say is here and now, it feels like LinkedIn, there is a community of professionals who are just so, there's a bit of a business swagger there. People are, they're so good at bringing their professional self to the table, and they cut out a bit of the fluff that you get on Facebook. And so a friend of mine by the name of Erin Sanchez, she does digital marketing and copywriting. We like to joke about how Facebook is really like where you post like your funny cat memes, your viral videos, and not that you can't put that on LinkedIn, not that you can't make someone laugh on LinkedIn, but I don't know if there's the same level of substance that is on I don't know if you get that on Facebook or these other social media platforms. Like for me, part of my content strategy is I'm just like posting advice, I'm just posting insights. And the number of people who get exposed to that is astronomically higher than anything I post on Facebook. And the quality of the responses I get, again, because these are all professionals, I feel like on LinkedIn, I can actually engage with people. I can have real conversations, real dialogue. Whereas on Facebook, it's like, I don't know, that one creepy person that you don't even know how you became friends, and they have a problem with everything that you said. And so that's kind of like my roundabout way of being pro LinkedIn and just saying, yeah, I mean, I've just had, it's just been different, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's just been different.
Awesome, awesome. So now tell us a little bit about, your business. I mean, your coaching business and any other ventures that you have going on right now.
So, it's funny because when you say other ventures, like I feel like I have my hands involved in a lot of things, but it all comes back to really what I'm passionate about is I'm helping people really bring to fruition what they're dreaming about with their business. And I don't say that out of fluffiness. I don't say that out of like, promising you the world and you can finally have your dream job or anything like that. But I've noticed there's people who they are so in love with their business idea, but they're not quite sure of how to make it something sustainable. Or maybe they've been working on their business for the past decade, and it feels like it's like the magic that was there day one. It's year 8, 9, or 10 now. They're still working 60 to 80 hours a week. They're still just trying to make ends meet. And it's people who are thinking, man, there has to be a better way to make this work. And so with my business, what I do for a living is essentially I come in as a coach and as a consultant, and I try to show people really I strip away the fluff, the academic research, the theory crafting on business, and we get right to how do you run and grow a sustainable business. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the ways that I do that, the projects that I'm involved in, I have I have actual coaching clients. But I also have like nonprofits that are local to me that I'm dedicating time to. I was literally right before this call, I was on a call with a nonprofit partnering with our local university here. And we were just talking about ways for that nonprofit to really take their business model and grow it into something sustainable. I have a Facebook group that has over 200 people in it who are just entrepreneurs, and they're just trying. I mean, man, they're running the gun, just trying to make it happen. And then I have a podcast where it's probably not as awesome as your podcast, but it's a podcast where I jump on the microphone, I bring a guest on, or maybe I'm just solo on the microphone and I'm just talking about business. I'm talking about, man, how do you really get customers who love what you sell? How do you sell something and not lose your soul in the process? These are pain points that people really, they love their business, but it's like, geez, I can't ask someone to give me money for this. Like I feel awkward about it. Or even like, hey, I need to hire someone. How the heck do I hire someone and not be a total train wreck from like a management perspective? Mm-hmm. All of these things are things that I'm really passionate about. And it's something that I've been very blessed to be gifted in and to have a really direct ideology on. And so I just like to, one of the taglines I use for my business is, I'm called Good Advice is the business name. And I like to say there's no fluff here. It's just good advice, because again, nice. When you and I sit down and talk, I'm not going to walk you through, hey, the last 50 years of business, the ethics of business, the economics of business. We're not going to talk about supply and demand. We're literally going to talk about, okay, how do you get from point A to point B and actually make money for your business? And actually grow this thing to something meaningful. And so, I feel like I'm also kind of a talker. It's probably why I have my own podcast. And so probably every question you ask me, I'm going to have like this long drawn out answer for it. But man, my heart, the thing that drives me every day is I want to move the needle for someone. That's what gets me up in the morning. It's what energizes me. It's what makes me happy. Funny story. Before I started my business, I was actually working for a corporate consulting company as an executive coach. And so we were working with corporations that were local here to us, and not even just local, just national. We're talking Fortune 500s, where I was doing management, where I was doing strategy, and I was helping these people understand how to grow their businesses better, or how to run their businesses better. But it didn't have the soul, it didn't have the heart that I now get to experience with these smaller businesses that, it's kind of like, and not like there's anything wrong with corporations, not like there's anything wrong with these bigger companies. But often you can kind of just check the box or kind of just tune out to actually being aggressive with growing your business. And I guess it was around 2 years ago, I was like, man, we have these corporations that are so profitable for the business, but really what energizes me are these tiny, I say tiny, I mean, some of these are, $50 million companies, but compared to, like a multi-billion dollar company, it's tiny. Yeah. But these companies that are just so energized around growing, about creating a better customer experience, those are the things that really get me up in the morning. And what led me to starting my own business, to starting Good Advice. So
awesome. Now, something you mentioned that I like to go back to, where you talked about, just the fluff of the theory and kind of the textbook. In your experience, I mean, have you come across many clients that, part of the reason they are stuck is because they're trying to implement a textbook strategy, or they're trying to implement some type of theoretical approach, and they just keep hitting a wall?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about, and here's the deal, there's nothing wrong with what's in the textbook. There's nothing wrong with, the theory of business. There's plenty of time-tested, proven principles that if you go out and you buy a textbook on business, you are going to get some really relevant, great concepts in there. The thing that's really funny to me, though, is the biggest problem, the biggest roadblock that business owners have is it's something that I lovingly call it blind spots. And, we all have it, but Harvard Business Review did a study on how many people think that they are self-aware and actually are self-aware. And the number is really scary. The number of people who are actually self-aware is only 10 to 15%.
Wow.
So I mean, and I'm not even saying that, just because I'm talking about it now, I'm suddenly self-aware. I mean, I'm sure I'm in that 85 to 90% who's blissfully ignorant to our business. Mm-hmm. And the best way to understand this is there's a great book. It's called E-Myth Revisited. All of your listeners need to listen to it or need to read it. It's an awesome, awesome book.
Okay.
And it's basically just on how do you take a business that's failing and grow it into something sustainable. And I had a guy who reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for a great book that I could just give me some direction for my business." And I said, "You got to check out the E-Myth." And he told me a little bit more about his business. And he had been in business for probably 2 or 3 years, was really struggling, could not make ends meet, was so trapped in the day-to-day management and planning of his business that he was never taking any time to actually step outside of the business and really think about like the strategy of where he was going. Now, these are all concepts that are actually in E-Myth Revisited. And so sometimes when I'm talking with someone and I realize we probably aren't going to work together, I still want to hand off quite a few resources for that person. So I said, "You got to check out E-Myth, and hey, I'll even buy the book for you."
Wow.
And he said, "Oh, I already read that book. It's a load of crap." And which shocked me. It shocked me because if you were to ask the experts, like a top 10 list of business books, you would get books like Good to Great. You would get books like Never Split the Difference, which is a negotiation book. You maybe even get some more other books like Think and Grow Rich, or Rich Dad Poor Dad, or How to Win Friends and Influence People. But you would always absolutely get E-Myth Revisited. It's like just known as an incredible business book. Mm-hmm. So I'm shocked that he's telling me this book's a load of crap. And I said, "Well, what do you not like about it?" He's like, "I already read it. It's total crap." I said, "Okay, what did you not like about it?" And he goes, "It was not relevant to me in the slightest."
Wow.
Which made me laugh. And I don't remember his name. We'll just call him Phil. This seems like a Phil kind of person. No offense to your listeners whose name is Phil. It's not your fault. But so I'm like, "Phil, this book is literally exactly about your situation. How do you think it wasn't applicable to you?" And what I realized, it's not that the concept isn't tried and true. It's that he lacks the self-awareness of recognizing, when you open a book and you read it and you go, "Oh my gosh, that's me."
Gotcha.
It's like these moments. It's like, it's like when you're in the grocery store and you see a husband who's like being critical to their wife. And they're like, why did you pick that up? Why did you, or, what are you doing? We're not doing that. And it's very demeaning and condescending. And you're like, geez, what a marriage. And then you get home and you do the exact same thing to your spouse. We lack self-awareness so much that, it's not that these concepts aren't meaningful. It's that we're so in denial with ourselves as to what's actually keeping us from being successful. And so, great example. I had a guy who I worked with who he had a really no means of acquiring new customers. He didn't have a website, didn't have any kind of client funnel whatsoever. Really, the clients he had were just people who were walking in the door.
Okay.
And so one of the things we talked about, I said, okay, if you want to really grow your business, first of all, you need to get a website. You need to create some kind of funnel to get customers that doesn't involve you physically having to go out and shake people and convince them, please come to my business. And in having this conversation with this guy, he was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. And something like 6 months down the road, he hadn't made any progress. He hadn't actually done it. Is the issue the recommendation, or is the issue that this person lacks the discipline to actually walk through the strategy that they need to make their business more productive and successful? But we don't always like to look at that person. We don't always like to look in the mirror and realize, oh crap, it's really not the economy. It's not, whatever political party is in control. It's really not, whatever other excuse we might throw out there. Really, it's me. And the sooner we recognize that, now when we pick up a textbook and read a book, it's like, oh, now I understand the concept.
Got it.
Getting back to your original question, the reason that I don't take that approach of sort of regurgitating knowledge is because my job as an effective coach is to peel back that blind spot, to peel back that layer. I had someone one time who was like, man, Blake, you must be your clients must love you because you just encourage them all day. And I was like, man, that would be awesome if that was my job. If I was like, your cheerleader, if you were paying me just to tell you how great you were, that'd be a sweet gig. Really what's happening is, I had a client, for example, who we were talking about someone he had to let go. And this person who just wasn't getting it. And my job in this conversation was realizing that this boss, the reason they had to let go of this employee is because over the last 12 to 18 months, they had never had an honest conversation with their employee on how that person needed to improve. And so then the boss is saying, well, they just can't get it. It's just not clicking for them. So then my job as an effective coach is not to give them, hey, go read this book on management. It's to be very candid and honest in the moment and say, hey, that person who failed in your business, it was partially their fault, but it majorly was your fault and your inability to lead and your inability to coach and develop your people. So now let's talk about that piece so that the next hire is a great hire, that it's someone who is going to do great for your business. That's kind of my style. I really prefer that we cut straight through the BS and get right at it. And so again, it's not like there's anything wrong with textbooks. It's not like there's anything wrong with like theory, anything like that. I just, for me, it's let's actually talk about the practical, tangible steps you need to take to make your business more profitable. There's really nothing I'm going to say all that to say. Otherwise, I would just say, hey, here's a book, go read that. So
gotcha.
Man, I'm sorry that I'm talking so long.
No, you're good, man. It's all good information.
I think I'm used to always being on the other side of it, where I just listen. So now, it's like I'm bringing balance to the force, and so now I can finally say everything I've been thinking in terms of business. But anyway, what were you saying? What were you going to say next?
No, I think that's all good. I mean, because I think it is great to have that perspective of that honesty, and sometimes I think people do struggle with having that real perspective of like, hey, this is how I really am, or these are my blind spots. Now, when you're working with clients, how do they usually respond when they is it an aha moment?
See, here's the funny thing though. This is what's so interesting, and I think this is so relevant. We all have this moment. Here's the deal. We all have this moment where we catch a glimpse of the truth. And in that moment, we have an option to lean into it and think about, okay, hang on, is there something happening here? Or to reject it because of ego, pride, I'm not comfortable with that truth, what have you. We all go through this every single day, right? And so great example. And by the way, I'm very authentic. I'm very transparent. I was talking with my wife and we got on some random conversation of what's the meanest thing someone ever said to you. And I think I said something from like 8th grade. And then I asked her, what about you? And she was like, she said something that I had said to her like 4 years prior. So I'm like, well, geez, like, I didn't know we were doing that. I thought, and she wasn't like, in tears. But it was a glimpse. It was a
Yeah.
glimpse of my words have power.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am trying to impact other people. And out of carelessness, and not that she needed like therapy, but I created a wound that now has left a mark for her to remember that situation by.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have these glimpses that we can lean into, or we can reject. We could say, oh, you're just being a baby. Oh, it's 4 years ago. Just get over it. Or, what have you. In the same way, what I try to do is, and this is what everyone should do as a business owner, anytime, because here's what happens. We become so addicted to the sale that we never stop to think about the quality of the sale. And what I mean by that is the quality of the person who we're actually bringing, because here's the deal. We're talking about the person who's going to trust us with their finances, who we're going to deliver the product, solution, service, whatever to. It takes us, they're picking us, but we have to also pick them a little bit, right? Because the worst thing you could do is to have a Karen hire you and she's awful to work with and it's miserable. And you're kind of like, geez, why did I take on this client? And they leave you a 1-star review and it really wasn't your fault. It was because of their totally unrealistic expectations. And so what every business owner needs to do is in those first introductory conversations is just like you're being sized up, you're thinking about, is this person going to be worth my time, effort, and energy? Now, sometimes price can be a great way to eliminate that. So that's why you don't want to be the lowest price out on the market. But all this to say, whenever I'm first talking to someone, it's, they talk about how a great way to sell is to lead with value. I do the same thing. I try to always give a little bit of insight, a little bit of coaching from the get-go. So this person can get a feel of if I'm a good fit, but it's also for me to see how this person's going to internalize what I've just told them.
Gotcha.
So great example. I had a prospective customer who we were talking about. She had something like half of her staff turn over in the past maybe 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if half of your staff has quit, either like, you're working, what's that show, Mike's Dirty Jobs or whatever, either you're working in a job that's like really tough, poor retention, or you're a terrible boss.
Yeah.
And so, keeping to myself and who I am as a professional, we're just having this conversation. And she says something like, well, and it's just so hard to find good work these days. Millennial, and I'm a millennial. And she's like, well, millennials. And I'm like, lady, I don't know what you're telling me because I'm a millennial. But so she says this and I say, well, ma'am, and I always try to be very polite, but I said, here's the deal. Here's what I know. From what I've experienced, and I've worked, in my company now for almost 2 years. I was in the corporate consulting world, executive coaching for 4 years before that. And so I've worked with hundreds of professionals. And I said, ma'am, here's the deal. In my experience, it could be that, it was just a miss in the hiring world. You just had bad luck. You had a string of bad hires, nothing you could do about it. But 99% of the time, what I've known to be true, when that many of your staff people quit, it's not them, it's you.
Yeah.
And I tried to say it as delicately as possible. Well, she scoffed and she said, well, if you were to tell me that it's my fault, I would never hire you, which is an insight to me. And I just smiled and laughed and said, okay, yeah, no problem. But in my head, I thought, well, even if you wanted to hire me, I wouldn't want to work with you because you're showing me how you would internalize getting a glimpse of a new reality, which that truth in that reality, it's getting in front of the mirror and realizing, okay, wow, there may be something about my management style that's keeping me from being more successful. And so what I try to do whenever I'm picking up clients is I try to find those people who, when I give them the hard truth, and not that I'm seeking that out, I'm not seeking to wound anyone. I mean, I've had great clients before who they're already phenomenal rock stars, but I'm looking for that client who really does want to go to the next level. You know, they're trapped at 800 grand in revenue, and they really do want to get to $1 million. And they're thinking, I will totally revamp how I do business if that is what's keeping me from getting to whatever that goal is. I'm not looking for the quick sale. And so I would say 99% of the time, my clients respond pretty appropriately and pretty, man, yeah, I'm going to internalize that and use that. The other 1% of the time, if let's say I miss and I start working with someone who they're not going to internalize it well, typically those are short-term clients. It's, hey, you know what? I don't know if this is going to work long-term. Here's a recommendation for someone else. And not that I'm not trying to improve sometimes I just miss. And so it doesn't necessarily click because I missed it. But I just, in building my Raving fans, I'm looking for a certain type of customer.
No, and that makes sense. And speaking of, like I said, the type of work and the customers you're looking for, you mentioned about your podcast, and how can people, if they want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, best way would be to go to my website, goodadvicecoaching.com, there, and then click on programs. On programs, there's a few starter opportunities of where you can work with me. I have a few 4-week group programs that you can get into. It goes all the way from whether you are a brand new business owner or someone who's trying to start your business and you're trying to fast track it. If you've been running your business for a while and you've just been really looking to how can I really break through. And then if you're managing people and you're thinking about how can I elevate my team, there's some options there as well. On top of all of that stuff, you can also email me, blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. We can find a way to work together.
Awesome. And how can they find your podcast?
Literally go to any place you would ever listen to a podcast and type in the Good Advice Podcast and you'll find it.
Awesome. Well, hey, Blake, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for all the wisdom that you dropped. And I definitely highly recommend people definitely check out Blake's podcast. I'm a listener of the podcast. Definitely look him up on LinkedIn. And also, can you repeat that book you mentioned before?
E-Myth Revisited. Great book.
Got it. So we'll definitely have to probably do a book review on that one on the Business Talk Library.
Love it. Thanks for having me.
All right, no problem.